Hello,
Hello.
and welcome to Planet Marzipan, the Fish and Marillion podcast. I'm Mezza, and here's my mate,
Craig Houston.
Hello, and welcome to Planet Marzipan. I'm Mezza, and I'm here with my good friend,
Craig.
We have guests again. We have rejoining us, James Levey,
Hello.
Georgina Wistow,
Hello.
and Fraser Marshall.
Hello.
And this is carrying on from our conversation of last week, where we're talking about Anoraknophobia.
So we just covered the album. Now we're going to cover Anorak in the UK and the live tour.
Listen on. So the band were touring, as we said, they did the university tour between the 13th of February 2001 and then they finished at Dingwalls on the 28th of February.
Is this the one that was recorded?
Dingwalls is one of the front row discs, actually.
Yeah, but wasn't it recorded for an online video? I have some recollection.
They did the Bass Museum as a web stream.
Yeah, but they did something at Dingwalls as well. I can't remember when it was, but there was definitely a Dingwalls one. They did that.
Oh, okay.
There was that. Didn't it go on the BBC or something?
No, it was a very early kind of streaming thing.
Was it?
They did a BBC, BBC program.
Seeing cameras.
Yeah.
It might have just been a live audio, and I can't remember whether it was live video, but it's definitely a live audio thing.
But it's, I mean, you can't compare the front row disc to the Anorak in the UK, but it's front row 21, which I don't think is actually on Bandcamp. I looked today.
Get Kennedy onto it.
Yeah, well, it's a nice set. I mean, the other one that's on the front row club is front row 17, and that's from the second leg. That's from Tilburg.
So what's the set list like on them?
So set list on Dingwalls is Under the Sun, Answering Machine, Rich, Uninvited Guest, Map of the World, Between You and Me, Quartz, Afraid of Sunlight, King, Great Escape, Out of This World, Man of a Thousand Faces, and Memory Water.
Big beat.
And then the one from later in the tour starts with TSE, Quartz, When I Meet God, This Town, 100 Nights, Goodbye to All That, Afraid of Sunlight, Out of This World, 21st Century, Map of the World, King, Great Escape, and Between You and Me is a final encore.
So both the set lists are all of 89 to 2001, aren't they?
Yeah.
That was the top 10 on the web, wasn't it, for the second leg? People
Was it?
were
Yeah. They asked for recommendations.
recommendations.
Set list, yeah.
Well, that explains it, yeah.
Yeah, I saw them at the Astoria gig on the second leg in the Hemel Hempstead warm up for the first leg, where they did a version of Answering Machine, which was an absolute car crash. Went all over the shop, and after the gig, H just went. They played it, H just went, "Should we agree what key that is?" And Mark went, "I'm in A." Pete went, "I'm in A sharp," and I think another one went, "I'm in whatever." I was just all over the place.
I was once at Racket when that conversation was going on, and between Steve Hogarth and Mark Kelly, the conversation went on for about 5 minutes until Steve Rothery went, "I mean, if you want to play it in the right key, you need to play it in." Just literally just put them both down. Just it's neither of you. All right.
It's usually Pete they go to with when they're asking about what key this song's in.
Yeah, it's usually Pete that says what key it's in. Yeah.
So I remember that Manchester Academy gig was the first time that Zoe, my niece, had seen Marillion. She'd seen Fish when she was younger. I think she was only 12. Yeah, I think she was 12 at the time. And anytime she goes to see them now, she's right down the front. She's over 30 now.
19th of May 2001, Manchester Academy.
Incredible gig.
That gig.
It was good. Well, they recorded. That's part of
Yeah.
the basis for Anorak in the UK, isn't it? The Wolves.
Most of Manchester and London is Anorak in the UK.
Is something from Wolves on there as well?
I don't think so, unless somebody can tell me otherwise. I don't think so. I think it's mainly Manchester.
It's mainly Manchester, isn't it?
Yeah. And then 21st Century and When I Meet God were recorded at the Racket Club, I think, weren't they?
Yeah.
That was just before they went down the second leg of the tour. Was it after the second leg?
It was after.
Run, but yeah, it was just from then. But as a live album, it's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it's such energy. It's just...
And isn't it one of the first ones where they actually, or the only one where they actually had their own their mobile recording studio outside, and Dave Meegan was recording the gigs. I think was it the only time they've ever done that? I'm not sure. I think it could be.
Well, obviously they do it for Port Zealand.
Yeah.
They might have done it for the Marbles gigs at the Astoria.
Yeah, but I think wasn't that the first time they'd ever done something like that.
Yeah, possibly.
So go
That's
on.
On and on, didn't it?
Yeah. So what do you remember of that tour then, George? Was it one of your favourites or?
Well, I hadn't done much of the university tour because it was when I was pretty much living in Seattle. I did Bath. And in fact, everyone came out of the Dingwalls gig and were driving home. So Simon and Vicky were driving home, James was driving home, Lucy was driving home. And the news came on that there'd been a 7.2 on the Richter scale earthquake in Seattle. And of course, I was in Seattle at work at the time, and they were all desperately trying to call me. But of course, it was coming up for midnight and they were all in their cars and stuff. So, Lucy was trying to get home to ring me and stuff. And none of the phones could get through. And it was all a bit mad. But yeah, it was a bit of a crazy time. But I was back in the UK for a lot of the first leg, because White Buffalo supported that leg, didn't they?
Yeah, they were great.
And Lucy and they hadn't got support for that tour. And Lucy had represented Phil when he was at EMI for his one ill-fated album.
Fresh New Life. It's a brilliant album.
It's still the most brilliant album on the planet.
Fantastic.
And so, but she had a box of them still at home. So we went over to Racket one Sunday and we sellotaped them all around Rackets, like when you put the toilet lid up, there was like you like that. And we've just post-it notes saying, "This is the support band that you need," because we were so desperate for them to be the support act on that tour, which obviously worked out really well. But yeah, I mean, I did that whole weekend. I think it was like Hemel, Wolves, Manchester, and then did they come down and do the Town and Country straight after that?
Is it Forum straight?
Yeah, the Forum. I'm so old, I still call it the Town and Country. In fact, Fraser called it the Town and Country before, and I was really happy.
That's what it's called.
And then obviously they went to Europe, and I did like Paris, Amsterdam, somewhere else.
Alone?
No, I did Poland, obviously, Barcelona, yeah, and I did obviously the Astoria gig in the UK. But yeah, I did absolutely loads and loads of that tour. So I told the story about Poland, I think, last time in the pod that came out today, so I won't bore you about that. But there's a quick story about Lucy deciding she was going to go to Barcelona for a week's holiday, because they were doing, I think, 2 nights at the Bikini and then doing Madrid. So and then they were flying back, I think. So anyway, Lucy decided that she was going to get an apartment in Barcelona, and she asked James Fishwick and I if we wanted to go with her. And I couldn't for work, but James could. And then she realised that because she actually worked for the band and she was there working, she was going to have to get on the coach with them after the gig at Barcelona and go up to Madrid and do the Madrid gig. So what finished up happening was James arrived at a hotel in Barcelona with Lucy. And then on like Tuesday night, I arrived and he spent the evening with both of us. in the hotel room. Then on Wednesday, we all went out and he came back with just me and had 2 nights in the hotel with just me. And then the following morning, I got a taxi to the airport and Lucy arrived a couple of hours later back from Madrid. And the bloke on reception was like, literally, I think he was just thinking that James was the massive rock star and he was like winking at him. It was the funniest thing. And these poor guys. But the funniest thing was Lucy had said to me, "Oh, you are going to fly home at this particular time, and I'm dropping the band off on the coach, so we'll be able to say goodbye." So I had a quick hug with Lucy at the airport. Then we got in the airport, and we were delayed. It was an EasyJet flight, and we were delayed for absolutely hours. And the band were bored. And literally at one point I was texting Lucy going, "Can you tell them to leave me alone? I am not their new toy." Obviously they were so bored of each other because they'd been on tour with each other. And then they were like, "A new person." And I was hiding from them on a chair under some stairs at one point. Just going like, "Hi." So yeah, mostly because they kept telling these terrible stories about when bits fell off aeroplanes while we were waiting for our plane to be mended.
Oh dear. That'll have instilled confidence in everybody.
Yeah.
So, speaking of White Buffalo and speaking of Phil Campbell, let's do a quick advert for him because he's just launched a new podcast in the last couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So check it out.
I was listening to the White Buffalo album, Waiting to Go Home the other week.
Yeah.
Very, very good.
Yeah. Is that the one with Wasted on it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh, Wasted.
And The Trench.
Just brilliant.
That's
Brilliant.
a great song.
Yeah.
But yeah, Fresh New Life is an album that I go back to quite a lot. I love it. But yes, do you want to talk about Anorak in the UK then, mister? Have a quick
wave Fresh New Life at you because I've got it here.
I love it.
Yeah, well, track listing.
Yeah, well, the album came out a year after
April 2002, I think.
I know, yeah. And there was 2 versions because Lucy worked on Magic and got a deal with EMI for a 1-disc version. Obviously, Racket released a 2-disc version. Was there like one song different?
Well, that was part of the deal. I'll do the track list on the 2-disc first. So it's separated out: Rich, Man of 1,000 Faces, Quartz, Go, Map of the World, Out of This World, Afraid of Sunlight, Mad, Between You and Me, The Great Escape, If My Heart Were a Ball, Waiting to Happen, Answering Machine, King, and then the Racket Club versions of 21st Century and When I Meet God. And then the deal was 1 exclusive track on the EMI version. So if you haven't got it, it'll be such a surprise to you. The exclusive track was Easter, which we've never got live before.
No, not at all.
Is that version 42, is it?
Yeah, at that point. So that on the single disc, it's separated out: Quartz, Map of the World, Out of This World, Between You and Me, Great Escape, King, If My Heart Were a Ball, Waiting to Happen, and Easter. So I've kind of focused on the EMI stuff anyway, yeah, on there. But as we've already talked about, it's such an energetic live album. I haven't played it in ages, and it really, really shocked me.
I do keep dipping back into it. I do like it as an album. I think I've mentioned as well already. It's a strange fact of Alan Robson on Metro Radio playing The Great Escape from this live album. And you said on I vividly remember because he played it a couple of times, saying that he didn't really like live albums, but he absolutely loved this one. He's a big Marillion fan, and Great Escape was one of his favourite songs, and it's absolutely epic. So that's really odd to hear on a normal standard commercial radio station. But well, hey.
And it was great to hear Out of This World come into the set. I think it was the university set, they brought it in, but it was great to hear it on the tour.
The other thing that's worth mentioning, or maybe not, is Remixomatosis.
I've not played that for like almost ever.
I'm dedicated to this podcast, but not dedicated enough to play this. So it's in my collection, and if your remix is on here, well done, but I'm not playing it. I'm sorry.
I don't think I've even got it.
Well, they sold. Another one of Lucy's cunning plans was to sell the stems on discs to all the tracks off Anorak.
Was it like
You
£10
can
a
do
disc
your
or
own
something
remix.
like that?
Yeah.
Pardon?
Yeah, it's
It
quite
was
a
about
lot to
£10
get
a
everything.
disc. It was quite expensive, I think.
Yeah, I've got one of them, but yeah, the full set apparently is worth a lot of money now. And there was a competition for remixes, and the best remixes went on to an album called Remixomatosis, which I think must be on Bandcamp. Is it, Craig? Do you think?
To be fair, it's one of those things that just passes me by.
I'm fairly certain it is. Oh, we've lost track.
Oh, James has walked out in disgust at Remixomatosis. He's left
Has James got a track on Remix?
It's worth it for
Some
the
chap
extra
called
barries on the
Gary.
sleeve, I'd have to say.
Well, can I put
It's a good sleeve, though.
can I blow my own trumpet here?
Are you on it?
The Barry, no, if you look at the front cover, the Barry in the top left-hand corner with the chef's hat is mine.
Oh, he was for the barbecue, wasn't he?
He was for the barbecue, and I just knocked it up. I don't think I was even asked to do it. I think I just did it because I was a sort of nerd who did that sort of thing for a laugh. Anyway, whatever, it ended up being for the barbecue. And then I think Eric picked it and used it on the album cover. So I don't think I got credit actually, but I'll be chasing Lucy up for the royalties on the very well selling Remixomatosis album.
All 3 pence of it.
Yeah. But I think it's a real shame. I think they sort of thought, Marillion and Positive Light had gone down so well with a large chunk of the fan base, and could something similar happen here? And they just don't really have the interest. I think for the most part, the mixes, they're not very engaging to my ears, I'm afraid. Sorry.
I think it's something for fans to be able to do.
Yeah,
absolutely brilliant. But it's not a product necessarily that many people, unless you're on it yourself, are ever going to want to buy. I've no idea what the pressing amount was and how many of them they sold or whatever, because I'm just not involved in that sort of stuff. But I think as an idea to engage fans, it's a really great idea.
Yeah.
But I don't see it as being a particularly good product.
I think it's one of those things. I think a lot of people fancied themselves as remixers and realised that it's very hard to do convincingly. I certainly did. And
did you have a go?
Yeah, I had a go, but I mean, I'm certainly not to the point of submitting it. I mean, it was, couldn't do anything interesting with it. I think there's one bloke who's done about half the tracks on there or something from what I remember. So I don't think sort of the ones that were of a sufficient quality to put out.
4 of them are by Kostya Rappaport.
There you go.
And if you're listening, well done.
Was there some sort of cash prize?
I don't know.
Yeah, there was.
Sorry, was
it something like £500 or something like that? It was quite
surely £500 in racket credits.
That's 3 t-shirts and
that doesn't sound like a Lucy competition if it's not in racket credit.
No, I seem to remember there was some sort of cash prize for the winners. So
didn't Mark do the judging?
Yeah, possibly so. I genuinely can't remember.
Somewhere in the back of my mind.
Come on, it was over 20 odd years ago.
Oh, Fraser, you get a credit on the album.
Oh, do I? Oh, I take it all back. Oh,
so Barry
fantastic.
remixes in graphic design by Carl Glover for a Left Studio. Crash Course Barry by Eric Nielsen. Chef Barry, Fraser Marshall.
Hey.
Oh, get me.
Oh, there you go. Look at
La-di-da.
Yeah, you have to buy a copy now.
I have a copy.
That could be a quiz question, but Fraser, couldn't it?
We're blowing it now.
Yeah.
There's only about 6 people listen to this. We're all right.
And 5 of them are on here.
What is your listenership? Do you know?
Yep.
7.
I'll listen. I'll ask you that offline.
Yeah, it's so bad that we do chart in lots of countries, put it that way.
Excellent.
We're the 3rd most popular Marillion podcast. Allegedly.
There's only two, those.
Out of 2.
Yeah.
Anyhow, Anoraknophobia. How was that then?
It is an album that I do revisit quite a lot. And I do revisit Anorak in the UK quite a lot. I like its energy. I like the songs on it, and I like the fact that a lot of the songs on it don't feel cut and pasted. And this is the one thing that I always loved about Dave Meegan's production and his almost like sense of taste in where he wants the songs to go and the way that he wants to develop them, because he's got a very good, not necessarily commercial mind to things, but wasn't there a little bit of on Marbles, a little bit of testiness between him and Rothers over things like guitar solos and over the direction? So they had a little bit.
I think that's right.
Yeah, they had a little bit of a set too, and I think it's a big shame that he retired from being a producer, and I think he still had a lot more to give, but I think that it used to take it out of him so much. Every project that he was involved in, he put his heart and soul and his body into everything, and almost like ruined himself for every project that he did because he was so committed. And I love every album that he's done for the band are my favorite ones. So even this isn't my favorite one of his, but I still got massive respect for it, and I love it, and I love the songs on it.
I think that's it. It's the last time really the band worked with a producer because Mike's got a very different sort of role with him.
Oh yeah, and I'm not dissing Mike in the slightest.
No,
not in the slightest.
Neither am I. But this is a producer arrangement rather than, I don't really know what Mike's title would be. I mean, he contributes far more than a normal producer would, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And now that relationship is why we get what we do, and it works really well for all parties. I can't ever see them going back to a producer now.
No,
unless they ever do a cover versions album and they can drag Trevor Horn into produce it, because that would be amazing.
Love to work with Trevor Horn, wouldn't he?
Yeah. But I don't think he would work with them in the way that they work themselves now, but I think he would work with them on something a bit more straightforward, like a covers album. I'd love to hear that, but that's just a little pipe dream of mine.
Is that another one of your campaigns, Craig?
Yeah, that in the Albert Hall.
Brave at the Albert Hall with an orchestra.
Yeah.
And Trevor Horn producing a covers album.
Yeah.
Doesn't want much.
I don't know.
No.
I would like them to. I'd love them to make. And they're not going to pay any attention to me, obviously. But I would, if I could have a wish list, I think an album that had something of the groove of Anorak would be terrific. And I think something a little bit less cut and paste, frankly, would be nice. Something a little more concise, perhaps. I think it's a terrific album. It really revitalized them at the time, and it was like the cover art. I thought the cover art was brilliant because it was like the music. It was shiny and contemporary and all the things that I wanted them to be, that I was desperate for them to sort of, after a few hard years, wanted them to feel like they were excited, and they did, and that's why it was such a good album.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it was a really exciting time in my life, sort of personally, but also sort of from a Marillion point of view, having been a fan, and sort of it was across this album where I really, got to know them because I was on tour with them a lot, and they were, asking me questions about things, and it was a really exciting time, just to be able to just, Lucy would be like, let's go to Amsterdam. Like, yes, let's go to Amsterdam. Or she'd ring me up and say, as I say, with the thing with Barcelona, she'd be like, Jim Jam's going to be in a hotel room for 2 nights on his own. Why don't you fly out? And I'd be like, yeah, okay, I'll do that, And it was just a very spontaneous, just, falling for all the mad shit that she, recommended to me. And I would just like, yeah, I'll do that. So that was really exciting. But just being on this tour where there was so much energy, having done, I think, this Strange Engine tour, they played Shepherd's Bush, which is not my favourite venue, and as a very short person means I hadn't seen any of them. I might as well have just stayed at home and listened to it. And I'd been, very annoyed by it, to coming out to this and seeing them in some really amazing venues, and seeing them having the time of their life. And it just felt like something that I'd been really worried about. You know, you sort of worry that, yeah, how long can they keep their love for this going against such a tide that's coming the other way? And then to see that there was just so much hope about it, and so much, and you know, so much of the right energy, that you just thought, yeah, this could keep going on forever.
Yeah.
And it was also the time when the first conventions were starting. You know, with the, you know, this is where the fan base were really becoming the family. You know, the start of it. Where yes, everybody, you know, they met in different gigs. They met in, you know, in like Web UK get-togethers and stuff like that. There was the germination there, but it was really this period, like from Anorak and the conventions, where it got into everybody getting a lot closer, because you're seeing people, you're actually getting to interact and talk to people. And there's so many people that, you know, from this period, that where we've all known each other and been friends. I mean, come on, we've all known each other over 20 years plus, all of us.
Yeah.
Well, Fraser, you got particularly close to somebody at the convention.
Well, I did, yeah. I met my
you
wife.
were ridiculous.
Yes, exactly. Well, I'm not alone. There's quite a few people who've met their wives at or husbands or partners or whatever. But yeah, no, I met the woman who would become my wife at the first Pontins. So, you know, even Pontins couldn't put me off romance, which is has to be said is quite some doing.
That was quite impressive, because those beds were horrific.
Let's not go into too much
No,
detail.
no.
I might do a James and shoot.
No, we're not going there. Yeah, as you've said, it's kind of the start of Lucy working with the band, and lots of different ideas. I think we talked in the previous episode that's going out with Lucy about her going around the country and talking to groups of fans for what their views and opinions were, and really sort of interacting with people. And, you know, as Craig says, the start of the weekends started very small and grew quite quickly, didn't it? You know, the first one was, I quite liked being back on the road after the Sunday lunchtime acoustic gig and getting home on Sunday night. It was quite nice. But then we're now looking at 5 days in Port Zealand next year, which is equally fantastic. Look at George's face.
10 months, was it less than 10 months and counting now?
But yeah.
I feel like a version of the Scream at the moment, but yeah, and it's really weird because, you know, we're 10 months out and I'm already talking to suppliers about things.
Yeah, but you know, you want to get it in and sorted, you know. It's
well, there were 2 bits of merch that we missed out on just because we timed out last time. One of them is one that Steve H has wanted to do for ages, and I've been wanting to do, and we just never managed it. And the other's just one that we just timed out on last year. So I'm determined. James is back.
My laptop was listening to you talking about Remixomatosis and went, no, about it.
We thought you were on it and I'd offended you.
It went, no, I'm having that. I'm going to restart myself.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
George.
No, I was at the end of my thought there was just, yeah, as I say, it feels like you know, I can't imagine what it's like for, you know, Stephanie doing, you know, a further 7, and you know, I mean, just Lucy's brain. And it's really funny because someone asked me a question today about something, and I said I need to ask Lucy that, but I'm not going to ask her this week, even though I am going to see her, because we're on holiday together from tomorrow. She's already there and I'm leaving in the morning.
Oh, for a wedding.
Yes. Yes.
Are we gonna wish the bride and groom all the best?
Well, you could do, yeah.
Go on, John. Be nice. I'll take the mickey out of him. Darren and Lizzie's wedding this week.
Oh yes.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. I hope they have a wonderful time. I'm sure they will. They've had a nice lead up.
They're in Sorrento. How can they not have a nice time?
Well,
it's beautiful.
Exactly. Yeah.
I know.
And we'll get him on the pod finally because he
I know
he was supposed to be on
poor
the
excuse to
.com
not
pod.
be on the pod this week, getting married. I mean, what is he like?
Well, we're supposed to be on the
Some
.com
people will go
pod,
to any lengths, won't they?
But yeah, all the best from us lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a wonderful time. I mean, you will have had by the time this goes out. You'll have
They'll
been
be
married
divorced
for
by now.
a month by now.
This
Yeah.
week's away. They'll be sick of themselves on honeymoon.
Once Craig's remixed this and put it out, yes, that will be a while. But
Just put the
anyhow,
pens out.
So now it's time to have a look at some of our emails and messages on Facebook. There was quite a lot of reaction when we said back on the 25th of May when we were actually planning on recording this episode.
yeah, I mean, I asked the question, what do you think of Anoraknophobia? Mid-catalogue mediocrity or the sound of a band reborn?
Well, you know my answer to that one.
Well, we do. But there are some of the other guys. I mean, Fraser, who you obviously just heard from, commented, because at that point, he didn't know he was going to be on the pod. So he said, very much the latter at the time, and I struggled a bit with the Castle years at the time. I've reappraised them since, and Anoraknophobia was the sound of a band with their confidence back. I wish they'd do another with as much groove and swagger.
Rob Crossland, friend of ours, not seen him for ages, mate, hope you're good. Says he actually prefers Anorak in the UK. Really loves it.
Okay. Felicity Pryke. Felicity says, difficult to unpick the album itself from the time, the Molf, the pre-order and the weekends. It's when I really started to get invested in the band, but this was due to a combination of a lot of, quite honestly, Lucy Jordache-driven things that you all got stuck with me with a smiley face.
Michael Bowdery says, a brilliant album, every track, a top 3 album for me. Yeah, definitely.
All right. Chris Wright says, this is where my fandom started to become strained. Undoubtedly, there are a couple of decent songs in there, but boy, is it hard work. Marillion needed an editor, and Dave Meegan was not the guy. Several songs just go on and on and on. Suffice to say, I barely listen to it these days.
Ooh. See, I slightly disagree with that. I think that, I know the way that they've worked for ages, I think Dave Meegan was actually quite a good editor. I think stuff's sometimes a bit tighter with Dave Meegan than they are with even some of the more modern day Marillion.
Yeah,
But I'm a big Dave Meegan fan, as everybody knows, so that's the thing.
Yeah.
All right, Mikey.
Go on, who are you going for?
Go for Mikey. Apart from the god-awful album name, there's nothing wrong with it. It's pure genius from start to finish. You always get tingles when I hear the opening of Quarter and played live. 21st Century is also my go-to track to introduce anybody to Marillion who either hasn't heard of them or still thinks they are a Scottish heavy metal band. Between You and Me is still a solid favourite. The gigs around the time those first weekends are ingrained into memory. Oh, and my name is in the pre-order booklet too. That's
okay. Seamus Colgan, I missed out on that whole period between Brave and Fear, so I really only got to know it during my speedy catch-up in the last couple of years. It's a very good album, and I am absolutely glad I own the LP. However, there are some gigantic albums just around the corner.
Stephen Wicks, friend of the pod. Hope you're good, mate. It was good to see you at the Rotary Band gigs. It's the album that got me back into the band, so I'll always have a soft spot for it. It's a massive improvement from the previous album and a precursor to the Mighty Marbles.
Nathan Page says, I think it's very much a transitional album between the Castle years and Marbles. I always think of it as a Pete T album because there's a lot of moments where he really shines on this.
Rick Kessler from the States. He thinks I think it's a great half album and it's better live. And the half I think is great is the pop material. Between this, .com and Radiation, there are 1 to 2 amazing, intelligent pop albums.
Okay. Andy Bliss, the album that properly brought me back into the Marillion fold. Absolutely loved it at the time. And while it settled down into a mid-table album for me over the years, I still have a soft spot for Anorak.
David Wright, I always associate this album with their show at Leeds Cockpit at the time, and I was blown away by the live versions of Quartz and Map of the World. The latter, in a parallel world, is a top 10 single for sure.
Carl Ragg writes, one of my go-to albums, some real gems on there. In fact, it's got a bit of everything that makes Marillion special. I love the more upbeat pop rock sound of Between You and Me and Map of the World, and the epic Quartz. The vocals on that are just sublime. With the softer side of the band too in When I Meet God and This Is the 21st Century. For me, it's an album that captures all angles of what makes Marillion special.
Mick Stead, I love it. Fruit of the Wild Rose and Map of the World being his favourites. It's an odd one for Fruit of the Wild Rose. That does seem to split people.
Well, Mark McCormack says, magnificent album, love every song, a slightly new direction, but in the end, the quality of the songs is what it's all about.
And it was one here from somebody called Zoe Cooper. I think we might be slightly familiar with. Yeah, she's my niece. Always been my favourite album. Yeah. And it was our first gig for seeing them at Manchester Academy back when she was, what, like 12?
Darren Newitt says, I love this album, but it was quite a different direction with songs like Quartz and 21st Century. Interesting, Quartz live at Manchester is on both Map of the World as a B-side and Anorak in the UK. However, with Megan's mix on the album, it shows how much post-production was applied when compared to the dry version on the single. That's Darren's view. Love the live album, and of course, if you've got the Racket version, you've got a few extra tracks recorded live at Racket.
One from a certain Mark Kennedy. The cake was great. Now, that's a little story that I haven't actually mentioned. During that tour, it was H's 500th gig with the band. So we'd actually got him a Barry cake. We actually got that made back when we had the Cakey Empire. And it was presented on stage to H, I think, at the London gig. So there you go. That's, to be fair, I'd almost forgotten about that.
Chris Woolridge says, good question. I only bought my copy last year.
What?
As it was a glaring gap in my collection. I had always streamed or borrowed the CD. So it took me a few years to appreciate it, but not my favourite album. Though after seeing a number of tracks played live, I have begun to appreciate it.
Well, thanks for folks' comments and emails and stuff. It was great to have a rifle through. There's lots more, but otherwise we'd be here for Christmas. So,
yeah, no, thank you for interacting with us. We do like to put on the Facebook group what we are about to review. So if you're not a member, please go to Facebook and join the group Planet Marzipan, a Marillion and Fish podcast. We would love to see you there. Thank you very much, folks. It's been great talking to you about Anorak and a really, really good time in the Marillion history. We will, of course, love to have any of you back at any point. George, you've already had your episode devoted to you. I'm sure there's a part 2 in there, though, from what you talked about. Some of the stories that you may have mentioned might need a bit more detail. So there might be a part 2, I think. James, as ever, fantastic knowledge. Great to have you on the pod.
And you're welcome.
Welcome for your first one.
Thank you.
I think we've got you penciled in for a Planet Marzipan meet at some point.
Yes.
That would be lovely. Thank you very much.
We shall grill it.
Yes. So it's all it remains to be said is good night from George.
Good night.
Good night from James.
Good night.
Good night from Fraser.
Good night.
And it's good night from me.
And it's good night from him.
Take care.
And stay alive. Thanks for listening to Planet Marzipan Podcast. Please like and subscribe from whichever platform you get your podcasts from. You can contact us at planetmarzipanpodcast@gmail.com and check out Marillion.com, fishmusic.scot or fishmusic.eu for all the good stuff.